Good morning, everyone, and thank you so much, Jamie, for that. I'm so glad to see a number of my students here, a number of my colleagues, and I'm excited for this talk. So that song, it started playing. I grew up hearing that song from Cheers, though I wasn't really an avid viewer, so don't ask me to be on your trivia team. I know not much about Sam or Norm. But the song offers that memorable line. Help sing it with me. Sometimes you wanna go where everybody knows your name. Dum, 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 dum. And they're always glad you came. Right? That's the dream. Thank you. Yes. That's the dream. You want to hear your name when you walk into a place you enjoy. But the more I started pondering this song in relation to what I'm focusing on, how to be a regular, I realized that my own concept of a regular is not the norm. Or should I say, it's not norm. If you're old enough to get that joke, it may be time to get that mole checked. You know who you are. This song suggests a longing to be known. But I believe a good regular has to be the initiating of the knowing and the loving. Well, I'm honored to have been selected as the Monteverde lecturer for this year's Humanities Symposium on the theme Neighbors. One reason is mainly because I just adore my colleague, Maggie Monteverde. I feel honored and humbled to be giving a talk that carries her name, and I hope I do you proud. But I also think that I have something to offer as a guy who regularly visits a number of local places. I've chosen 3 to highlight: a bakery, a taco shop, and a hamburger joint, in an effort to understand the many questions I've been pondering on this topic. What are the unspoken rules and requirements of becoming a regular? Can a business be a neighbor or even family? How might repeated daily or weekly rituals give regulars and the people they encounter a sense of purpose? Through an exploration of the regular from a rhetorical perspective, with evidence from interviews and personal experiences, this talk develops a theory of the neighborly regular. As you can see, I changed the title of this. Offering advice for becoming one, giving tips on the pitfalls to avoid, and providing an argument for why you should want to become one. In addition, this is also just a love letter to 3 of my favorite places, though I have many more. We were just at the snow cone place, and they were like, "You're wearing different clothes this weekend." My 3 favorite places: Dozen Bakery, Tempo Tacos, and Brothers Burgers. First, breakfast. How to be regular. The new Dozen Bakery Woodbine location greets you with a maze of shelves holding gourmet jams, cookbooks, bags of crema coffee, and this maze guides you through the ordering line. At the counter, you hear the soundscape in the background. Bright lights illuminate the display case, featuring the city's tastiest seasonal scones, muffins, galettes, and pies. Loaves of bread line the back wall as you walk to the front, behind the Tuesday morning crew, with a classic indie song starting to play in the background. After Abby, over here on the side, greets you from the barista station, starting your cortado before you've even ordered it. She just sees you walk in. Gabby, behind the register, asks, "What are you grabbing today?" Marla, who's at the register, carefully places your order: a honey chocolate galette and blackberry almond muffin, 2 of my favorites, into the pastry bags before adding a French country sourdough bread loaf, unsliced please, to the pile. I began visiting Dozen during COVID at their old location. As everything locked down, my wife and I needed our daily bread, or our weekly bread, and I had an inflated sense, I don't know if you felt this before too, that I would be the one keeping these local businesses afloat, right? It was gonna be me. This masked daily ritual with dozen employees, Cecilia, Ethan, Evan, and others. I see Regina nodding her head as well. She's a dozen regular too. Provided emotional grounding for me as well during this time. According to the British psychologist John Bowlby, this grounding is necessary to establish what he calls a secure base, which is often built early in life through our parents or a caretaker. The regularity of those early relationships allow us to take, quote, a series of daring explorations. When my own life circumstances have changed, I've often found comfort or a secure base in food. But it's also the people around the food from which I develop that social network. Today, Dozen has changed locations, moving a little bit closer to me, which is cool. We're actually neighbors, which is fun. The staff occasionally turns over alongside the seasonal pastries. As a Nashville institution, they do a fine job of repeatedly cranking out the best baked goods, even as the faces and contexts in which I see them change along the way. So what is a regular? Back to my question. And how do you become one? According to Marla from Dozen, this is what she has to say.
Regulars are people who take time to recognize the people that they're coming to every day. Yeah. I think that those are the people who are memorable for us. People who are not just treating us like the person who hands them a pastry or takes their order.
Right.
And I think that they're more common here than they are in most other places. It's one of the reasons that I enjoy customer service at Dozen.
And Marla continues.
I think the regulars are probably my favorite part of my job. I like being known by customers too. I think I really enjoy that. Customer service can take a lot from you. And I think that regulars are kind of what gives you something back. Which is really rewarding.
So to be a regular, you must mostly just show up repeatedly and get to know the people behind the counter. My understanding of a regular stems from my academic discipline of rhetoric, which highlights the all-important trope of repetition. In a book from the 1920s called Counterstatement, this is from my guy, Kenneth Burke. My students are like, yeah, we've heard of him, you know. Kenneth Burke says that repetitive form is the consistent maintaining of a principle under new guises. It is a restatement of the same thing in different ways. In repetition, for Burke, it's not just the same over and over again. There is both permanence with the change, a secure base with a series of daring explorations. A regular will experience change and loss in the same space as the familiar food and friendships of their regular spot. I just think of all of the people that used to work at the places that I go to, or places that have shut down that I used to really enjoy. But repetition makes change palatable, especially while eating a dozen lemon lavender pie. Go get that, it's in season right now. Now, I recognize that becoming a regular involves a transaction with financial means. And believe me, I know as a college student, that's not always easy. But being a regular doesn't require that you buy the priciest thing on the menu every day of the week. Repetition and ritual around even the smallest item on a weekly basis can lead you on the path to becoming a neighborly regular. My time as a regular, this is the origin story, if you will, the Batman Begins. My time as a regular began as a thrifty college student. The year was 2001 in the West Texas town of Abilene. And my roommates and I attended church on Sundays near a local donut shop called AM Donuts. As a group, we made the habit of waking up early to get in line for one of their world-famous treats. When I could save up enough money, I'd spring for the apple fritter. Doesn't that look amazing? Behind the donut counter were a number of Cambodian immigrants, and they were filling the bags with donuts and pouring coffee while their manager, George Kim, ran the cash register. George recognized that my friends and I would pay with small bills, crinkled, and sometimes change, right? And so he would make sure to pop in a few extra donut holes here and there, and then just ask us about our lives. George modeled a lot about being a neighbor and a regular. And, cool story, George was a Cambodian immigrant. He escaped the Cambodian Civil War, and his family immigrated to the United States in 1979 by way of Thailand. For the city of Abilene, George Kim was our donut king. And he went even beyond this. Now imagine this, your donut guy is like, hey, I want you to come over to my house. We're gonna go hiking, and I'm gonna make a meal for you. So we hiked around Fort Phantom Lake, watching not to step on any rattlesnakes because it is West Texas, and he fed us a meal. Later, he would invite us to his free Cambodian New Year festivities when he had his restaurant, and he let us try durian fruit. Any of you had durian before? Do you know what it is? Okay, just 2 or 3, I think, 4. It's stinky as all get out. The texture's weird, but I thought it was really kind of tasty. And I would have never had that except for George. Unfortunately, this story has a sad end. George died of COVID on Christmas Day in 2021. But the outpouring of love from our hometown was notable. Many mourned the loss of this Cambodian immigrant. They contributed above and beyond his GoFundMe goal for his funeral expenses and his medical bills. People shared personal stories, the same as mine, like, yeah, he had me over, or we went on a trip to Cambodia together, on his Facebook page. His spirit of generosity carries on through me and others because of the fact he made me a regular at his donut shop. Love you, George. George showed me that there was a spectrum between stranger and friend. And that local businesses like his could fill this spectrum. He brought many of us into his orbit as a friend, even though we were strangers. Now, those of you who have been in my rhetoric class may know this one. In the book Permanence and Change, Kenneth Book reveals a rhetorical device called the graded series, whereby one seeks to change identity through gradation. We see this chasm between stranger and friend, but it's a lot easier to get to friend through these steps. And I think the regular is that moment where we can do that. So rather on focusing on that chasm, one changes identity through gradation, from stranger to customer to regular, and so on. In many ways, I have George to thank as the one who taught me the most about finding a secure base beyond my family, seeking connection among strangers. Now, according to Ed Diener and Martin Seligman, some thinkers in the field of just happiness studies, if that's a thing, they say that happy people spent less time alone every day than unhappy people. And a large study published in 2008 found that those who were more socially engaged, attending church, belonging to organizations, I might add, being a regular, were consistently happier, as were those with large social networks. I would argue that happy people find a way to convert strangers around them into neighbors on a regular basis. Now, this is sometimes hard for me. I know I'm up here doing my thing, but I'm kind of a social introvert. Maybe that's something you feel like as well. Maybe you're just an introvert, which is what I was before. And so sometimes I found it a challenge on more than one occasion to do this work. So it's the repetition of becoming a regular that I would argue allows me and can allow you to become more extroverted at your own pace. Next, lunch. The sounds of tempo tacos. Can a local business or neighbor be a neighbor or even a family? It's Friday. Friday's my tempo day. In an unassuming shopping center between a laundromat and Subway sandwich shop, tempo rises as the featured local business at the top of the stairs. Sometimes I wait in my truck for the open sign to illuminate at 8 a.m. for breakfast. I'm waiting, I'm excited. And other times my wife, Christy, and I, she's here, hey. Sometimes we order lunch on a Saturday. This proud Hispanic-owned and family-run business seems largely made up of regulars. Up to 70% of their customer base, according to Zyla, who works there, is basically a regular. The parents, Yvonne and Javier, flip tortillas and fill them in the back, while their daughter Zyla slings the best cortados, and son Uriah delivers Texas tacos with a smile and quick chat about our perpetually beleaguered Dallas Cowboys. Darn it, Pete, if your Bears didn't beat them yesterday too. Thanks a lot, man. Upon unwrapping the foil, homemade flour tortillas envelop either fluffy eggs and crispy potato cubes, or for lunch, fajita chicken tacos with onions and peppers. Hot sauce in squirt bottles impart a fresh and spicy adornment for the perfect bite. Are you ready to eat? Lunch is coming after this, right? Looking up, lights with symbols and lampshades brighten the space, and to the side, a water spigot emerges from an old piano, revealing the music-centered decor. After all, Javier and Uriah are both session and touring drummers. Tempo is family, or fam, quote, fam, as they call their regulars, and perhaps no business I know does a better job of courting return customers as friends. Whether a fist bump from Javier or a sit down with Yvonne, I truly feel a part of what they've created as maybe a distant family member, fourth cousin, I don't know. If a business can be a neighbor, tempo is the gold standard. So Zyla, I interviewed her, she references the nuances of identity between the boundaries of customers and friends in this clip. And as you can see, I added family there because I think tempo does that. Here's Zyla.
I think sometimes, but sometimes I do feel like people are regulars for too long until we're like actually friends, and I'm like excited to be friends. But yeah, I don't want to be like the weird one either that's overstepping the boundary, like with somebody who's just like coming in to get their food, and I'm like, but I mean yes, I do think boundaries create good regulars, but also it is fun when it finally does like move into friendship, like a real friendship, then just we go to the same place.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
But yeah, I don't know, I think it's very situational. Yeah.
That's my friend Zyla. I love that. So how does one achieve that second level, neighborly regular status? Well, a couple of things. First, there's memory of each other. Zyla defines a basic regular as this.
Well, I mean, like classic answer would be like remembering the person.
Yeah.
And remembering their name or them knowing my name.
Yeah.
But also like joking with each other. I feel like a lot of us like have certain words memorized.
Right.
And so especially when I can
Repeated
like put
words.
somebody's
Yeah.
order in, definitely that's like a higher level regular.
I wish I wasn't giggling in the background, but it's okay. It shows what kind of rapport we have. Zyla's response helps me think more deeply about the rhetorical concept of memory as connected to the rhetorical canon of invention. Sure, we may simplify this by saying, you just got to remember people's names. But the ancient Latin text, the Rhetorica ad Herennium author, taps into a deeper understanding of memory as, quote, the treasury of things invented. In other words, when you remember a name or a shared idea, you are at the centerpiece of communally inventing a moment together. In fact, here's a list of all the names of people at Dozen, Tempo, and Brothers that I've committed to memory. Think about that. Sometimes you get a name wrong, and that's okay. It's a part of the experience, right, Josh? I mean, Luke. I'm sorry, that's a little inside joke there for the English majors. But it's a part of it, you know, and keeping that memory going is this moment of invention with each other. Next, I'd suggest having a common interest that you share. Sometimes it takes a few visits to figure this out, but I regularly converse on reading advice, fashion, right? Coffee bean variety, ambient music, cooking. Was that just that celebrity that walked out? Is that who that was? You know, all of those moments of like interaction with each other. These moments of commonality serve as something Kenneth Burke calls identification, which is a bridge that two people with different perspectives create together in life. This is Burke's definition of this. This theory of identification suggests that people can only begin to navigate their differences through persuasion by finding a common bond. And this is a great way to learn new things from the strangers you're turning into neighbors. Well, I do have one more thing to add, but finally, supper. How might a repeated daily or weekly ritual give regulars and the people they encounter a sense of purpose? Yeah, you're seeing my name on that box, and wifey as well. Brothers Burgers is my closest thing to Cheers. It starts with a phone call to Helena or Penelope on a Friday to place a pickup order with caller ID. I think they often have it. I don't know. I think I just call at the same time. They pick it up and go, "Hi, Joel." After putting in my regular order, I give it 5 minutes, and either I drive my truck or Christy, my wife, driving home from work, picks up the food going down Bransford Road. Even on a rainy day, I'll pull into their waterlogged, potholed driveway, and Rosario will wave at me while working the fryer. With only a few exceptions, I have eaten at Brothers Burgers almost every Friday night since April 2020. I know. Is that embarrassing? Should I be embarrassed? On the rare occasions when I have missed a Friday, I have made up for it by eating there on a Saturday. Yeah. The slightly off-kilter tables at Brothers greet you with old family photos of the owners themselves. Christmas pictures from the 1980s, dads in short shorts and moms with giant hair. Old memorabilia, tickets, ads, and menus are also captured beneath the thin linoleum coating. Even sitting there alone, you can feel at home looking at the nostalgic images of a private life shared with its patrons. Most of all, the hamburgers are legendary. My favorite, the Jumpback Jack, comes with grilled onions, cumin aioli, candied bacon, pepper jack cheese, and raw, sometimes surprisingly spicy jalapenos. The brothers themselves, mostly recognizable from their childhood photos, holding baseball trophies, occasionally show up, giving the feeling of a celebrity's arrival. And speaking of a celebrity's arrival, I've somehow achieved that status at Brothers too. Let me let you hear it from KD and Penelope themselves.
See, the whole term regulars, it kind of varies.
Right,
Like,
yeah. Let's define it.
There are people that come in here a lot, and we may know what they eat, what they drink, and all that, but it's not like you. Come in here.
Right.
Between someone that's
visits the same restaurant repeatedly and a regular. A regular has more of it's more of a relationship with the staff. Like, I know.
We don't scream for everybody. I don't know if you heard that part or not. It really is a trip for other people to come in to Brothers with me. That happens. Which brings me to my third and final suggestion for becoming a neighborly regular. Show the love. Sometimes this can be a simple thank you card. Maybe remembering a birthday. Maybe you could ask about that. Maybe if you have the means, a generous tip will do. In fact, during the pandemic, I heeded Brothers' call to buy a gift card to keep them going, right? I'm helping these folks stay alive. It was a great way to support them, and I've never cashed it in, partly because they've changed systems, so it won't work anymore. They said they would honor it, and I was like, no, I think I'll just frame it. It's something I treasure. When you give love freely, you receive love too. It's a great way to shift into that higher order of meaning with each other, regular, neighbor, family, whatever you want to call it. And I think that's an important thing to do. Well, I do have one bonus time moment for you. I've done my 3 places, but what about Casa overall? What to avoid as a regular? Well, you don't necessarily have to have money to be a regular. Sometimes you just have to show up and be loud enough to get attention. My wife, Christy, and I have a few of these kinds of regulars who visit our house on a consistent basis. We love these two, even if they exhibit the mistakes of a regular along the way. Of course, I'm not talking about human regulars, but instead, our neighborhood cat regulars, Wags and Skeech, aka I call her Vomit Cat. There's a whole story behind that, I won't get into it, but somehow we keep serving these cute, in the case of Wags, and ugly, in the case of Vomit Cat, animals. But they do occasionally make a mistake or two along the way. Take, for instance, Wags. He has a habit of requesting food very, urgently. Give me food. He takes one bite and he walks away. A regular, I think, should always be a grateful guest, but I still serve Wags anytime he wants it. Now, sometimes people and cats want variety. So if you have a regular order, that's no big deal. In fact, one time, when my wife and I walked into Brothers, the cooks immediately put the food down on the flat top, not realizing that Christy was thinking about a catfish po' boy instead of her regular order. They gave us the extra food to go anyway as a gift with a funny story. If given that extra food, unlike Wags, just accept it with a smile and move on. Now I have to say that Vomit Cat, in spite of occasionally committing the act for which she is named, is more of an ideal regular. She eats most of her food. She purrs lovingly, even if it does sound like an alien clicking in the back of her throat. And she keeps coming back as her true, authentic, ugly self. She's a consistent presence in the lives of our neighbors. No one knows how old Skeech is, and we jokingly theorize she may outlive us all. Sometimes in a quiet room, my wife will mistakenly believe she hears Skeech mewing at the back door for food. Skeech is literally already haunting people before her passing, and we know her phantom will call us for many years after. I mean, when did we hear that she was in renal failure? Like 3 years ago, yeah. Something like that. She's a very unique cat. There are regulars all around us when you start looking for them. We are creatures of habit, and when you start to look up and see those regular faces along the way, you start to realize that you are not alone. There may be a deep chasm between stranger and friend, but engaging those around us starts to soften the edges of those fears that we have. Last year, the New York Times Magazine came out with their issue on happiness. And I was struck by this poignant moment in one of the articles written by Susan Dominas, and I have it here on the screen. Talking to strangers on trains, in coffee shops, at the playground, on the line, at the DMV, in the waiting room at the doctor's office, could be dismissed as an exercise that simply makes time pass. But it could also be seen as a moving reflection of how eager we all are every day to connect with other humans whose interiority would otherwise be a mystery. Individuals whose faces we might otherwise read threat, judgment, boredom, or diffidence. Talking to strangers guarantees novelty, possibly even learning. It holds the promise each time of unexpected insight. For the entirety of our lives, we are learning to guide ourselves through change. It's not always fun. Our bodies change, the people around us change and move on. Our environments change, our majors or careers change. I had like 4 majors, right? And this is a disorienting and sometimes alienating process. Too often, people muse about the way things were, the way they used to be. But this is life. If we're lucky, we grew up with a secure base, and somehow we find a way to connect one secure base to another. In the process, we must find a way to transform, to adapt, to conduct a series of daring explorations. We must. Because becoming a neighborly regular means you can do this from a secure base. Rather than seek avoidance or escape from your changing situation, the ritual, the habit, the repetition of seeing people you know and strangers you have befriended helps you tackle anything. And when you decide to head on over to Dozen, Tempo, or Brothers Burgers, you can tell them Joel sent you. Thank you.